up again, Cowboys Nation and YouTubers? It's that VA Dallas Cowboy fan coming back at you. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting down below. I make these videos for me and you, and they're a little therapeutic after a huge, apparently upset win over Minnesota last night, where Cooper Rush went off. I think he was 24 for 40, 325, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. Gingers. They seem to come in on their first starts and make a name for themselves. It happened Thanksgiving Day 94. It happened again last night. One tidbit that I wanted to talk about real quick, first off, is that last night's game-winning catch was the first time in NFL history that it was Cooper to Cooper. More specifically, first time in NFL history that the quarterback throwing the ball and the wide receiver catching the game-winning ball both had the same last names. So Cooper to Cooper will now be something. Well, first name, last name. So Cooper Rush to Amari Cooper will now be in the annals of history. And I think they said the only time in history for another record was a game-winning catch trailing in the fourth quarter of overtime against the same team 2 seasons in a row. And it happened Andy Dalton to Dalton Schultz. Yeah, Dalton Schultz last year. And it happened Cooper Rush to Amari Cooper this year. So even without Dak, even without a running game established, we still made records in history. But just wanted to throw that out there real quick to begin. First thing I wanted to talk about was the whole Lael Collins thing. All week we talked about how it was going to be, are you going to have him at right tackle? Are you going to have him at left guard? Is he going to start at all? Where would you put him? And it turns out Terrence Steele, we already knew was going to start at right tackle. So was it going to be Connor Williams out or not? They did not take him out. Keller Moore and his genius came up with a great idea as to when they wanted to go a bit jumbo package without showing jumbo package, was to have all 5 original linemen plus Lael Collins and Connor McGovern on the field at the same time behind Cooper Rush and in front of Zeke Elliott and shit. I'm sorry, I'm getting old. Because he barely played last night. Tony Pollard. He didn't get many rushes last night. But the imagination and the mechanisms that go on inside Keller Moore's head is crazy. A lot of people hated him the first year and a half of his play calling duties. But as I said, it's because he was running off the Jason Garrett playbook. He was on that the first season. All he could do was run the shit Jason Garrett was doing, and that was not the best. And then last season, he had no off season, so he basically had to run the same shit Jason Garrett again because he had no chance to install a new offense. And then you lost your starting quarterback and your offensive lineman. So last season was aghast of bad decisions on the offense. But this year, we're starting to see, like he did in 2019, where he comes up with some big-time plays randomly, and it works. He had the trick play for Cedric Wilson to throw a pass, and that was all on Cedric Wilson. That boy has come on a lot in his years because he got the lateral, but because he couldn't dump off the pass immediately, he actually had to scramble out and find CeeDee Lamb open after he ran for like 20 yards just going east-west. He couldn't go forward because they had it all blocked up. But he still came up with an amazing play. There were some other plays that were dialed up that were pretty good, but things happened. Jarwin and Schultz dropped passes. Some of that was on Cooper Rush and ball placement. Others were that they were just hit at the time they would have been receiving the ball. But all in all, good game plan from Keller Moore. Dan Quinn, he still got these guys beasting and ready to play. And credit to the defense. You had Kelvin Joseph debuted because Trayvon Diggs got hurt. Well, re-aggravated his ankle later on in the game, so Kelvin Joseph came in at the end of the game to man his position. He didn't really have to do too much because they weren't even looking his way. They wanted to go with Jefferson, who was already hampered from earlier in the game, and it didn't really matter, but he was on the field. So it's nice to see him come back and get on the field and get some action in. Ty Nsekhe came in for Tyron Smith, and I have to admit, his first couple series were horrible. He looked out of place. He was getting beat bad by Everson Griffin on quite a few plays. But once he got himself settled in and the game continued moving forward, he settled in. He got himself straight. He got himself into a rhythm, and that was no longer a factor. They actually gave Cooper Rush pretty good time back in the pocket to make plays. Unfortunately, they couldn't open up running lanes, but they didn't have to because the passing game was still on point. And that says a lot because Cedric Wilson, CD, and Amari did their things, and we still don't even have Gallup out on the field yet. So think about that. Anthony Brown, as much we talked about him, myself in general, about getting rid of him and how bad he's been, he had one bad play where he did get a, he was beaten basically on a play. I don't know what he was doing. He was trying to tackle the man or something, but you saw him hit the dirt and kind of slide to the sideline, and he wasn't even a factor. He was on the ground when the guy was wide open. If Kirk Cousins didn't overthrow his receiver, it'd have been an easy touchdown. But he made up for it. He made a couple good plays in there. He dug himself in. And I think personally that he's been playing bad. But I think because they did activate Kelvin Joseph, that he's now watching his back and hoping that nobody will take his spot. So he's playing better than what he normally would be doing, because he'd be getting called a whole lot of pass interference calls, but not last night. So I'm glad he's stepping his game up, albeit, to save his own butt, but at least it's helping the team. Michael Parsons, if we don't talk about him enough, it's crazy. He had 11 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, couple pass deflections, and an almost interception all on his own. He spotted up at linebacker, he spotted up at defensive end, defensive tackle. He was all over the field. He ran sideline to sideline to knock a couple plays dead. He chased down Cousins. He's chased down the receivers. I mean, there's nothing more you could talk about this kid. Thank you, Philly, for making us move down and get us an extra draft pick, and we still got this guy. Thank you, Carolina and Denver, for taking Patrick Surtain and who's the other kid who barely got out on the field? J.C. Horn, who's hurt. If y'all didn't do what y'all did, we'd have never gotten Micah. So think about that. Randy Gregory. Randy Gregory is somebody you don't want to see pissed off. And it was obvious that he was pissed off because there were some plays where they called some penalties that were horrible on him that ticked him off. And when he came back on the field, he beat down whoever was opposite him en route to crushing Kirk Cousins. There were quite a few holding calls that were never called. I think there was like 2 or 3 holding calls near the end of the game that they finally started counting. But Randy Gregory's and Michael Parsons on the edges right now are beasting, and they can't stop it, and they're being held like every play. And it's obvious, but the referees are not going to call it, apparently. If they're doing this much damage, imagine what they're going to do when DeMarcus Lawrence comes back. And Neville Gallimore up the middle. I mean, this team is getting by with the play that they've been doing on defense with guys out. But imagine when we are full, when this team is fully healthy again, probably the end of the season, hopefully playoffs. This team's going to be dangerous. Fully healthy complement, Dak healthy, Tyron Smith healthy, Keller Moore, Lawrence, Coop coming back as healthy as he can be, Gallup. I mean, this is a dangerous team. Sitting at 6-1, a lot of people want to hate and say they're not the best 6-1 or one-loss team in the NFC. But when you look at it, if we're running on all cylinders, I don't know a team that can beat us. Obviously, Tampa Bay, everybody will say they're the champs. They're the ones you got to beat. But they lost to the Saints, and not for nothing. The Saints played well, even with the backup. But and week 1 was a BS call that shouldn't have been called. If anything, it should have been offensive pass interference. But, we played, that was the first game of the season, and we've gotten into our groove since. So imagine playing them again. Green Bay, you never know which Green Bay will show up there. They could have an off day and still win. They could have a great day and just go off. Arizona's come back down to earth. Kyler Murray's hurt. I don't know how bad. They say he's fine. He'll be okay, but he came limping off the field at the end of his game, so we'll have to see. And the Rams. We've beaten the Rams before, and they've beaten us. Only difference is Matthew Stafford. So we don't really know what exactly the Rams are, except beating up in their own division. But not for nothing, Dallas is definitely up there in the top 4 to 5 best teams in the NFC. 1 losses. So we'll have to see. Last note about the game as far as refereeing. Them calling a personal, an unnecessary roughness on Basham for basically doing nothing to Kirk Cousins is starting to be egregious. The Randy Gregory thing, where he touched the wide receiver in bounds, mind you, and they threw a flag saying he was hit the guy a little too hard out of bounds, even though all he did was put a hand on him. It's starting to be stupid, and I tweeted out last night that if I keep seeing these freaking insane calls, I was just going to turn it and watch the World Series. I'm starting to get sick of it week in and week out with these calls that randomly come up only against the Cowboys and nobody else. Basically, I'm done with it. I'm sick of it. I can't do it anymore. Last thing, the comparisons with CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, it should be done. It's done. Y'all had Kirk Cousins. We got Dak Prescott and apparently Cooper Rush. CD caught 6 catches for 112 yards. Justin Jefferson, albeit he did get hurt, only caught 2 passes for 21 yards. And he was locked down by Trayvon Diggs, Anthony Brown, and Jordan Lewis all game. So I don't want to hear comparisons anymore. Just let it be. Let them play their games. But that's all I wanted to talk about real quick. We'll see if anything comes up in the next, before I go to work. As far as the MRIs go, if it does, we'll talk about it then. Till then, this is VA Dallas Cowboy fan. Out.